A long time ago, the seventh sacrament of our church was called extreme unction. And as most of you know, it was a sacrament reserved for those whose sickness was unto death. Am I hearing bagpipes? Is somebody's phone going? Sean, are you playing bagpipes? That's so weird. I'll just get louder. It was called extreme unction, and it was a sacrament reserved for those who were sick unto death. And if the priest came to anoint you, it was likely curtains. But for maybe the last 50 years now, the church's understanding of sickness and the powerful moment it is for those who are sick and for those who love them and for the community at large caused us to change the name of that sacrament from extreme unction to the sacrament of the sick. Because now we understand that the sick are really a sacrament among us. They are the seventh sacrament among us. That the sick, even as they stand in need of grace, are, as a matter of fact, also a source of grace. We all get sick, right? From the common cold through allergies, the dreaded flu, the aches and pains of our aging bodies, diabetes, cancer, glaucoma, gallstones, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, CP, broken bones, cracked teeth, and the rest. At some point or another, we all get sick, and so does everybody we love. In today's gospel, Jesus has a genuine encounter with two who were very sick. As he was going about his work is interrupted by a dad who desperately needed him because his daughter was very, very sick, terribly sick. Jesus unexpectedly encounters this worried dad. And he stops in his tracks and he listens to this worried man. And he makes his way to the man's home, and there he encounters his very sick little girl. And even as he's making his way to that worried dad's home, he's interrupted yet again by a woman lost in the crowd who's been sick for many years by this isolating disease. Once again, he stops in his tracks. He stops in his tracks. In the midst of all those people, he encounters her. He stops and listens to her. She, of all the crowd, becomes a person, a real person to him, and so to everybody around him. And the rest is history. When anyone stops along the way and encounters a person who is sick, it is a beautiful thing. I hope we've all seen how beautiful that is, felt it in our bones when we're the ones who stopped, or when someone stopped for us. It's a beautiful thing for the sick one and for the healthy one. And it makes both more human. The most important question regarding those among us who are sick, which is all of us now or sooner or later, is that what the sick can bring to us, what they can bring to society and to each of us who are healthy at that moment. If we let ourselves encounter them, what gift, what grace can they bring that we all need, that we, the healthy, in that moment really need? The sick are among the hurt and the hurting. That's a given. Oftentimes the sick are shunned because we don't know what to say to them. They're shunned because we are sometimes afraid to get what they got. They're shunned because we really don't understand. what's going on. Most of us at any given moment are on the upward road. We're rising stars. We have this illusion that we're in control until we get sick. We get sick. And all of a sudden, this abled body becomes disabled. Maybe for a time, maybe forever. It's not fun. When we are healthy, we don't like to be reminded that someday we will be the sick one. Talking about sickness on a boiling hot Sunday morning here in the Midwest is weird. It's not even flu season, and I'm talking about getting sick. But I have to suggest to you this morning that it's really, really important to consider things like sickness that are a part of all of our lives and the lives of everybody we love before we get sick, before they get sick. It's important that we reflect on such a common human experience as sickness, that we put a frame on that moment in our life so that when it happens to us, we can see a little more clearly than we would have before it was our turn. Maybe it's not so weird to talk about getting sick when we're feeling pretty darn good, like today. Sickness is an important part of our lives. Sickness, disability, it's not just something to be gotten through. It's not something to be gotten over. It becomes an actual location of grace for us and for those who help us. A big part of that grace is what sickness, with all of its limitations, can teach us when it's our turn. Sickness, my friends, is the great equalizer. And if you're listening to that story, the story that held two stories actually, you'll see what a great equalizer it is. The rich and the powerful, the synagogue official, the poor and the powerless, like that hemorrhaging woman, both get sick. No matter how much money you have, no matter how many titles you have, you'll get sick, and so will the poorest of the poor. Sickness, my friends, is the great equalizer. Everybody gets sick. No exceptions. Sickness actually reminds us also of what it means to be a person. When we see people who can't do what they once did, even with something as common as a cold, all the way to dreaded cancer, we begin to see that our identity of function no longer works for those 10 days that we have a cold even. We'd like to feel on top of the world. We don't. We get crabbier. We're tired all the time. We get cranky. We even get a little selfish and self-centered during just the 10 days of a cold, much less the more dreaded sicknesses. But in that moment of sickness, we get a glimpse of ultimate truth, that our identity is in not so much our functions, what we do and how we like to be with people, but actually in something else. Someone else. Sickness teaches us that we can't fight life. This is what life looks like right now, and really we have no choice but to surrender to it. I've been with so many sick people who fought it. It only made them bitter. It kept them even more self-conscious and on the other side of love. And so we only have one choice with sickness: to surrender. If you got a cold, you got a cold. And I have a cold, you have a cold. That's what we got to do, is ride it out to the end. It takes this word called surrender, to surrender to what is. Sickness demands that. Otherwise, when we're sick, we're miserable, even more miserable than before we got sick, or than even if we would have just been sick. And so sickness truly humbles us. It humbles us because we want to be the healers, we want to be the teachers, we want to be helping people all the time, but sickness pulls us up short and makes us, first of all, have to wait for a friend who's sick to get better. And as a matter of fact, also, it makes them have to wait for us. Or we have to be the one who's waiting to start to feel better again. And in that encounter with a sick person, it opens up windows for us into the transcendent, really opens things up for us to God. New horizons, deeper horizons are made available to us from sickness. That's just true if we're paying attention to it, or to what's happening in us when we're with them. So we, like Jesus, will encounter the sick. We need to be able to allow that to happen, to allow the sick into our life. And there's a mystery in meeting another person, especially the sick. Always when we meet a person, there's a mystery available to us, but especially if they're sick. Because discovering love is just wanting another person. Really, we start to feel in ourselves, we want them to rise up. We begin to feel what Jesus must have felt with that little girl. We want to be able to say, rise up. I want you to feel better. I really do. It's just love starts to happen there. The words of Jesus to that little girl, stand up. I want you to stand up again. Mystery there, that when we listen to the stories of the sick and the weakest, we are the ones who are transformed. It's about discovering something which is a quality of prayerfulness, really, it seems to me, a quality of prayerfulness in that interaction. We start to hear this inner voice that allows us to see the value of this other person who can't help me right now. But I somehow, for some reason, want to help. When we're sick, the preacher becomes the preached to. The teacher becomes the one who stands in need of teaching. And the parent gets parented. Things turn around. Being with the sick, you see, helps us when we are healthy. Because we need to encounter people, meet the sick, meet you with your difficulty so I can let you meet me in my pain, my difficulty. But when we don't feel very beautiful, which none of us feels beautiful when we're sick, all of a sudden we see something in the eye of the one caring for us, that we still have something beautiful about us, even when we're sick. Finally, sickness is one of those places where we can meet each other differently. You see, the healthy need the sick. The strong need the weak. We need to meet people. That's the secret, of meeting, truly meeting people. All kinds of people, including the sick. Young people, especially, it seems to me, avoid the sick and the elderly. Because they are, especially, it seems to me, but we all are, caught up in a culture of winning, of success. And it's a frightening thing to confront the world when those who are moving up in society meet those who are moving down in society, even if for a few days. It confronts them and all of us with what we would rather not have to think about. But the truth is, whether we're sick or healthy, we both become more human in the encounter. Where are those places of transformation available to us, where the healthy and the sick can come together and meet? In their homes is one place we can go to them. Jesus hears this call for help, and he makes his way immediately to where that sick little girl is, into their homes. So can we. We can go to each other's homes. There are also great institutions that bring us together with the sick, like we have here in St. Louis all around us, right here at Washington University, St. Louis University, all the hospitals around us here, and the huge healthcare systems headquartered here, like Ascension Health, that bring people together to listen to each other, to work together for the sick. and the sick and the healthy working together to help each other. These great institutions do it, but they can't do it all by themselves. And then there are the churches. The churches can be a place of great encounter. Churches can be a place of great listening. Pity, pity, pity the sick person who does not have community. Don't pity someone so much because they're sick, but pity the sick person who has no community around them. Community is a big part of a sick person being raised up. The sacrament of the sick arises out of community. When one calls me to their bedside or comes here to the CSC and says, Father Gary, would you anoint me? My heart is moved to the core by that request. It's a powerful sacrament. It takes 7 minutes. And I want you to know that when you're sick, it's available to you. So many from other religions and none have asked for the sacrament of the sick here at the CSC. Even a Jewish man not long ago asked me to anoint him because he longed to connect with others in the community of faith and his God. The sacrament works because it's just so human, and belonging happens through these ancient gestures of anointing and the privilege it is for me to represent you, the community, to them. And because I so strongly have this sense that the sick person is a sacrament, whenever I do the sacrament, when my knees permit, I kneel in front of them. I kneel in front of their sickness because it's so full of grace, so full of God. It is a powerful thing for me to do. Then I have to get back up again. But those are some of the places of sacrament, of transformation, where the strong can be exposed to the weak and the healthy to the sick, and vice versa. You and I, my friends, we can create a society where we can take care of ourselves, and when we can't, to be able to find the right person who can, who will help us, and be willing to ask for help. And so I conclude as I began. When you are sick, you crave to be an essential part of the life of community. You are in need of grace, clearly then. And also you, in your sickness, are a source of grace to all who encounter you. Please trust that. Give us the privilege to care for you. Because you see, in your sickness, you become the sacrament. You become the sacrament of the sick.